All right. So, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us on today's webinar, Vault into Success, where we'll be discussing how 3 key strategies can potentially boost your team's productivity as much as 16%. I'm Andrew White, the head of our data and design team at NextGen. So if you're new to Vault, looking to improve your team's file management processes, or looking to move beyond just simple check-in, check-out, and revision control by introducing change management or advanced BOM management, we should have you covered. Presenting today is going to be Eric Miller, the Technical Solutions Manager for our data and design team here at NextGen. He's a 20-plus year mechanical engineer and an expert in all things Vault, data management, and PLM. Eric was also named Autodesk Instructor of the Year for Product Design and Manufacturing in 2023, and we'll walk you through real-world examples of ways NextGen customers have experienced actual gains in productivity with the help of just 3 best practices we'll review for you today. So if we could advance real quick.
All right.
So just a real quick note about NextGen. We're the fastest growing technology partner in the Autodesk space. We are a gold partner of Autodesk, and we have been named the #1 service provider in the US for the past 3 years. We partner with customers on make, design, and data management solutions across the US and Canada. So here's a quick look at our agenda. I won't read through it, but also really quickly as a note, just before we get started, a quick housekeeping note to mention. If you've got questions during the webinar, please add them to the chat on the right of your screen. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Eric to get us started. Thanks, Eric.
Yeah, hey, thanks, Andrew. So I think this is, I'm supposed to see the next slide here at the bottom. Okay. So you might be thinking, okay, this is a Vault. This is primarily focused around Vault, today's discussion. But when we talk about Vault, obviously that's just a tool in our engineering design teams, right? So we talk about what are your design challenges. It goes, they're obviously, probably a lot of them come to mind, right? How do we create, minimize like prototyping, for instance, physical prototypes? How do we reduce costs? How do we, get our products to market faster? But, it's one of those, this slide here is for some reason. Yeah, you can go next. The thing is, data management is actually a design challenge when we think about it. So, if we look at this little slide here, it talks about different companies, and this is okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, as far as the percentage of companies that need to find, have trouble finding the right information, it's 48%. Wasted time for searching for data, 45%. Reusing data is 30%, and then working on the wrong or outdated data is 30%. So just a lot of these challenges that revolve around managing our data, right? So, and in most companies now, you're probably using some type of CAD tool, right? Whether it's Inventor, SolidWorks, Creo, there's so many of them out there. But you might even still be using some 2D tools like AutoCAD or some kind of sketcher tool, but when we talk about managing these types of files, it's important to realize the gains of an actual system like a product data management tool. And so we talk about all these different terminologies, right? Like, what is PDM? What's PLM? What's bill of materials? Obviously, if you're attending today, you probably know a little bit about these things, but I just want to first define the difference maybe between PDM and PLM. We see those terms thrown out a lot. And first, what is PDM? It's most of the industry would refer to that as product data management. You might hear product definition management, but really what PDM comes down to is really managing not just the data, but the files is kind of the primary, thing that's trying to manage. We talk about CAD files, whether again, like it's Inventor, there's assemblies, there's parts, there's drawings, there's presentations, as far as the AutoCAD, the DWG files, all the different viewables, PDFs, all these different files. And even when you extend beyond just design type of files, there's, Word docs, there's Excel docs, there's all these other types of files that need to be managed. And if you're just using Windows folders to do that, you probably ran into some problems in the past. It seemed like that's kind of a inevitable. You're going to maybe save over the top of something you didn't want to save over, and then it's kind of hard to go back in time. So we'll talk a little bit about what a PDM can do for you. So that's really what a PDM is kind of geared towards solving for a lot of customers is managing that type of data, keeping track of old versions, have one central source of truth, and not copies of it, potentially all over the place on somebody's C drive, on somebody's, out in the network. So when we talk about managing those types of files is really what PDM is good at. And then if you extend it on to product lifecycle management, or PLM, that kind of extends a little bit beyond just the design side of checking in, checking out, those kind of things as a PDM does. So, and some of these tools, there's a little bit of overlap. So when we talk PLM, we're talking more about new product development, supply chain interactions, managing your quality department, whether it's inspections, CAPAs, things like that. So there's a lot of things that extend beyond just your engineering team, but it's a lot of the same information, right? So we're using this BOM, creating a BOM probably from, it kind of all starts within Inventor if you're a CAD user or whatever other CAD tool you're using. But that's kind of where that conceptual side starts. Maybe even, before then you're kind of talking about ideas, and then you eventually start building that digital prototype. But then it just kind of extends on from there, whether it's sales, whether it's your service end of things. That bill of material has a life as it kind of travels through your company. So the goal is to have kind of that one central source of truth, right? And have that distributed to where it needs to go, and have the right data at the right time. So that's one of the things we talk about with any of these Autodesk tools. Obviously today the focus is on Vault, but that's not the only tool that's out there. So if it's not right for you, there might be some other ones at Autodesk that are. So there's a handful of them, but they all try to manage data, whether it's on premise, on the cloud, or whatever. But we don't want to have to re-enter things, right? So that's what we're going to get into today too, is a little bit of the best practices of what these tools can do for you. So PDM, again, that's kind of the primary focus today. We'll talk a bit about PLM, I guess, towards the end, and how we can maybe integrate some of our different systems. But PDM helps us manage, track, and organize your data without hindering your design workflows. And if anything, it actually creates more efficient design workflows. If you're storing things on Windows folders, or maybe you're trying, Google Drive or Dropbox, we have customers that are trying these different tools to maybe either save money or just, they didn't know maybe any different. But there are tons of advantages, especially with a tool like Vault. Vault's got a lot of history at Autodesk. It's tagged along with Inventor and AutoCAD the whole way, plus a few other products that integrates with Vault. I'll show that slide here pretty soon. But I mean, the idea of having some additional tools as you're going through and designing your products, it really can be a game changer for a company. So speaking of other products that integrate, we'll talk a lot about it. Like Inventor is the primary CAD tool with Vault, but it doesn't stop there. I mentioned AutoCAD, but even these other tools like Alias, Moldflow, Navisworks, 3ds Max, Factory Design Utilities. But even over on the right side there, I hate to give free advertising to our competitors, but we actually have tools that work with SolidWorks. We've got plenty of customers. My background is more in the engineering side, where we used a little bit of everything. I've used SolidWorks, I've used Creo. I actually teach Creo classes, back in the day. So it's like all these different tools, and it's fairly common for different companies to acquire maybe another sister company, or you try to work together and it's like, hey, we like this tool, or we like this tool. They can all kind of work together. And that's why, Vault has the integration there for a couple of those other main tools that some of our customers may use. But then also the Office side of it, PDFs, you see Word docs, Excel docs there. So there's integrations built in for all these tools. So you don't have to actually leave your design environment to be able to interact and collaborate with other people. Make sure you that specific version, you get to a T in the road or a Y, it's basically like, we could, at this point in the design, I could go this way or I could go this way. And that's a critical point where you want to make sure you have that documented and you can go back to it if you need it. So that's kind of how these tools work. We check in the files or we create revisions, manage the life cycles of the file, but then we can always go back to Rev B, Rev A if necessary, because out in the field, most likely your customers are using some version of that particular design, but it may not be the most recent version. Okay, so you need to be able to go back and either provide service, service parts, be able to at least know what they currently have so that you can address any issues that might come up out in the field. All right. So what happens if we're using, so again, a couple of the key core concepts of Vault specifically, and this doesn't, it does extend to other PDMs as well, but most of the time it's like there's a few things that it does. So we have the check-in, check-out capability. So every time you check in the file, you're creating another version of that file. That's kind of separate. The versions are a little bit separate from the revisions. Now, this is getting into a little bit of the detail on it, but revisions are kind of more of that formal kind of primary letter or number that we put on the drawing, where you might be checking in, checking out that file several times over the especially the initial conceptual stages. But we might want to still make sure those new versions are either shared with somebody or that they're stored as far as like having that history of the changes that we made. So those versions are all important. But the way Vault works is there's a server side of it and then there's a client side. So normally when we're working on files, to be the fastest and most efficient, those files, it's best to have them local. So that's what Vault does. We store them on the server as we're checking in, checking out. But when we're opening and saving, we download them to our local machine. It mimics the folder structure, all that kind of stuff, and we work on those files locally. So that kind of makes it the most efficient and the most, I guess, the fastest as far as opening and saving our CAD files, because some of those assemblies do get fairly large. So another core thing is there's security built into Vault. So that's kind of a core concept there. We don't just let anybody go in, just like you would in Windows folder. Somebody goes out, maybe deletes a file. You can't do that in Vault unless you log in. We know who did it. It kind of has that history of the user that maybe made the mistake. And not that we're trying to get anybody in trouble, but obviously to be able to resolve a mistake, it helps to know where it started. So that's kind of a few of the core concepts. Tracking those the version history. A central source. We're storing it on the server. Everybody points to that. Vault uses a file store and a SQL Server database. Basically, those two things. And the database, obviously, another core concept is the searchability. So all the metadata that we add to our inventor files or whatever file type, things like what's the project number, who created it, who's it signed off by, all that kind of stuff gets stored and can be searched on within Vault versus trying to go just look for file names in a 20 level deep folder structure. So those things are all important. And obviously another main thing I'll mention before we move on here with Vault is the relationships. If you're trying to store things in Windows folders or in Dropbox or whatever it is, it doesn't know the relationships between an assembly file and the components underneath it, the drawing file, the presentation file. You might be referencing an Excel file that's driving your iParts or iFamilies. There's all these different things. The relationships between parts are so important. So if I'm going to make a change, say for instance, add a hole to something or maybe add a different feature, I need to know how it's going to affect the assemblies that part is used in. And it might be used in 5, 10, 20 different assemblies. If I'm going to change it, I got to be aware of that. So with Vault, it's quick. There's a little where used button, or you can use the uses button to see the parts underneath. So you can kind of go up or down the ladder when it comes to components and the different files that are associated with it. So those are a couple of the key things that Vault really is going to do, and a little bit of the overview. Here's what, as far as what happens when a file is added to Vault, just kind of showing this here, it's versioned, the relationships. So again, just like I mentioned, those are two core concepts. Those are recorded and stored. And so then, the database kind of allows you to kind of utilize that information, either search for it or use the where used tool, like I mentioned. The file is indexed and the properties are extracted. So that's for searching. Assigned to categories, that's Vault Pro. Again, there are two versions, two editions. There's Vault Basic, which just comes with for kind of for free in a way to your with Inventor or the product design collection. And then there's Vault Pro, which is kind of the the creme de la creme, I guess, when it comes to the Vault product. So it's got a lot more features. Categories is one of them. Categories basically can use rules to assign different life cycle schemes or different revision schemes. As the files kind of get checked into Vault, it'll use those rules and can assign those. So those can be helpful for kind of managing the different types of data, different groups potentially. Add or update properties associated within that category. So there can be specific properties for a category. Those can all get mapped in, whether it's custom properties in Inventor, they can get mapped into Vault. And then views are added. So PDFs, DWFs, and actually recently they added step files and DXF files. So that's actually pretty handy there for, and that's just all kind of automated. The DWFs are kind of more automated during the loading of a file, checking it in. But as far as like creating PDFs, step files, that's usually based off of a lifecycle change. So we can obviously going from like for review to released, you might want the PDFs all generated because now that files or that design is ready for production. And the files can be replicated between multiple sites. So using that does require a SQL standard in order to do replication. But there's a couple ways we can handle that. You can either go full replication, you can have a file server that just has kind of the data pointing back to one central database at the main site, but really allows for companies, especially today, as we're expanding, globally, all these different companies are kind of adding, maybe other sites, maybe people are working remotely. That's a little bit different than replication, but once your team grows enough in a different site, having that data there fast is helpful, and so replication can certainly be a key thing there. All right. So again, Inventor is one of the tools we talk about, and notice here it says only Vault understands all Inventor file types well. There are some other tools at Autodesk that do it really well too, but when we talk again, and I mentioned earlier, Vault's been with Inventor since day one, basically. So when we talk about iParts, iAssemblies, content centers, tube and pipe, frame generator, all those things that you might be taking advantage of. Some other tools like Dropbox or again, Windows folders, it doesn't manage that stuff like it needs to in order for you to be, efficient. Where Vault, they've added, again, over time, some of the, like iParts, iAssembly, those always haven't been the easiest thing to manage in Vault either. Or if, for instance, factory design, they haven't always had an add-in for that, but now they do. Even like FEA, like if you're using Nastran for FEA stuff, now those results can be checked in and checked out within Vault. So as the whole design sort of environment within Inventor has grown and changed, they've constantly adding new stuff like nesting and Inventor Cam. Well, Vault's had to kind of change with it. In fact, there's a whole nother thing called Vault for Make, where they've added in integrations with Feature Cam and PowerMill. So if any of you users out there are using those tools and not using Vault, you should really consider it, because it's a great way to manage what's actually ready for production, your NC files, all the tool paths, things like that. All right. Multi-site collaboration, that was kind of mentioned on the previous site. So no matter where you're at in the world, you can have your Vault data, just like that, and not have to wait for it to transfer, over an FTP site or anything like that. The Vault will synchronize throughout the day at specific times that you say, or if, let's say somebody just checks it in, you can do a manual pull on that information too. So there's no delays. All right. We mentioned at the beginning, Andrew did, that, we can get you up to 16% productivity increases. And so we do a thing called business process assessments fairly often for our customers. Now, what that stands, it's a BPA is kind of the abbreviation for that. But we go in and we try to look at your entire, not just design, but all the way from concept, whether it's what's coming in from sales, how are we getting that information in, all the way to sending the part out to the customer. So we deal with service, we deal with manufacturing, the flow of information. I haven't been to one company. I've worked with hundreds of different companies over the years, and I've never been to one where hey, no, everything's working perfectly fine for us. We don't need any help. And they may not, not every company is willing to admit they need help, but once you start kind of asking questions to the design team, most likely they're doing something manual that could be automated, or they're doing something that's just wasting time. So these are some of the things we just pointed out here. 4 different BPAs that we did. I just kind of took some of that data and loaded in. I'm not showing the company names, obviously, for for privacy reasons there, but the key one really is on the left there, managing change. If you don't have an ECO process that's more automated, built into your workflow, most likely you're wasting some time, and I guarantee it. Changes are, even if you're only doing one-offs, a lot of companies we work with say they're doing one-offs, and even throughout that conceptual stage, it's not like the first time you create a model, a digital prototype in Inventor, that it always goes out the door like that. That's just not reality. So even throughout those conceptual stages, yeah, you may not rev it from A to B to C throughout the next 10 years, but even just managing the changes throughout, we make a prototype or we send it over to this person to approve it. There's all these different steps to kind of getting a design released. And so that's a key thing we see for so many of our customers. If you don't have a good system in place for change management, most likely you're wasting, and this is probably low. Notice here it says kind of around that 2 to 3 hour range. And that's per person per week, is what we found throughout some of these different companies. Not everybody deals with it quite as bad as that. And you can see some of the other ones there, data entry errors. So we talk data entry. Well, where are you re-entering data? Are you re-entering it into an ERP system? Are you re-entering it into QuickBooks for costing or for accounting? Like, there's no reason to have to re-enter anything. Like, today's world, everything can be connected. Obviously, there isn't. It isn't always like the snap of the fingers, but there's tools out there, or we actually have a great development team internally here at NextGen to help with that. So let us know. These are things we can help with. Modeling, drawing efficiency. So if you're not using a PDM tool, most of the time you're trying to do like save a copy within Inventor, and it just doesn't work that smoothly, especially if you're renumbering, you want all the drawings to go with, stuff like that. And obviously printing, we still see paper travelers all the time. We see, I'm still guilty of it. I like writing my notes down on paper. So I guess I can't say that I'm not going to ever print anything, but even on a drawing, like, writing it, marking it up, or whatever. There's tools now that we can use for digital markups. So you don't have to create a printed copy of that, know which one's the most recent, and then obviously transfer that around or send a drawing out to the shop to build. So any way we can automate, digitize the whole workflow is going to only help make sure we're dealing with the right data at the right time. So you can see the totals over there, 6.7 hours per week. So we did round down. I guess we could have rounded up to 17%, but 16.7% increase in productivity here is kind of the average between these four companies anyway. And I honestly, I feel like this is probably low. I mean, there's so many different things that can be improved. This is just kind of even just like using the Vault mobile app. We won't get into that too much today, but you can just, from your phone, I can sign off on an ECO or view, take a measurement from my phone or a tablet. The Vault mobile app is way underutilized by a lot of our customers. So just wanted to kind of touch on that. All right. I know I'm probably going to go way long here, so I'm going to try to keep things moving. But let's talk about a few best practices. That's a little bit of overview, initially there, what Vault is, what it can do for you. Hopefully that kind of helps shed some light on some things. But if you haven't considered it yet, let's talk about some best practices. So maybe this is more for those people that are currently using Vault, but maybe not just to its fullest capabilities. All right. So first thing is task automation and design reuse. So we want to free up designers from these manual tasks and repetitive tasks, and hopefully get them more time doing what they're good at and doing what they like. Like, I don't know about you, but I like designing stuff. Like, it's fun to think about, and I don't get to do it as much anymore. My background's designing excavators, and that was a great place to start my career. But it's even now I've got a kind of a every now my brothers are all engineers, so we'll get together and kind of talk about some different things. It's just kind of fun, right? That's build something new that's never been done before is kind of a goal of pretty much every engineer, I'm sure, that goes through the work of getting a degree anyway. But so anyway, we want to spend time, and that's really what you pay your designers and engineers to do is make better designs, right? And do things that maybe are going to help your company. So let's get rid of those repetitive tasks, like for instance, like creating PDFs, for instance, automating some of that stuff. Reusing designs. So like I mentioned, going through Inventor, doing a save a copy, it's very cumbersome. The drawings don't always come with. You got to go through and do a bunch of So it's kind of a rat nest sometimes. So copy design tool within Vault allows you to take an existing design, and maybe it's a different size, or maybe you're putting, like in this case, a different set of wheels on it or something like that. We create a copy design. We can change part numbers. We can actually replace different components during that process, it's all done, from the data management tool. You don't have to even open it in Inventor, kind of make some of those changes. Obviously, once you make those changes, you're going to want to bring it into Inventor and make sure everything works, looks good, is what you want. But the nice thing about that is your drawings come with, you can actually move it to new folders. And because it's coming from a PDM like Vault, all the relationships are still intact. Now you might need it if you have a new part or replace a part with a different size or shape. You might need to update some mates and stuff like that, but you're saving, hours of work there by using the copy design tool. All right. So with Vault, we want to work the way we want to work, right? So everyone has their own structure, numbering, revision scheme. Vault is very customizable. All right. So we've set up, I know one time we set up 13 different life cycle states for a company. And it just made that was the process they used. There was a customer approval. There was a customer review. There was a test. There was a test approve. All these different states kind of made sense for them because different people needed to have access. They needed to look at a file and see where it was along that process. So you can do all that. It's pretty easy to set up and apply. It says you can teach Vault how to work and let you manage it, let Vault manage things for you. So we'll get into the job processor. We're not going to get anything too in depth, but the job processor can help automate some of that stuff. So do you want the job processor to create PDFs, DXFs? Do you want it to, you can even get into some custom jobs where it can maybe, save out a JPEG. We did that for a customer once using the job processor. The JPEGs maybe were a little more secure as far as the PDFs for competitors taking it maybe off a website or something and modifying it. So having just a flat picture file, they felt was more secure. So we built something to do that. If you have a dispersed team, Vault is still there. Everyone uses the same source. So even though it's replication, or maybe you've got people working remotely, you can either VPN or there's a thing called Vault Gateway now, where you can actually access Vault from anywhere and get into your local on-premise Vault. It's just you create a separate IP address almost for that specific user, and they can log in using that without having to use a VPN. So if you think about some of the from your IT department standpoint, that can be kind of slick. Automatic file naming. So we've seen everything under the sun as far as part numbering schemes, and some I kind of agree with, but I'm kind of a believer in letting all the other metadata, do its thing, and let the part number just be a part number, a unique way to identify this design versus that design. So I'm a fan of just the sequential part numbering. However, that doesn't work for every customer. I'd say it's about 50-50. Sometimes you want a little bit of intelligence, or maybe here's these 7 different areas that we need to have a prefix for a part number. So we can build all that within Vault. Duplicate search and reduction. So obviously I just talked about unique files. That's important. But however, so even based on the file name, I try to ask customers to, hey, there's a little checkbox that's going to enforce unique file names. And that's, so you don't have 10 different parts called plate, not knowing which one's the right one, or parts called bracket, that kind of thing. Obviously, that doesn't work for every customer either, because each project might have similar terminology. But if you can, we want those unique file names. At the same time, though, there's a whole other thing called the actually geometry duplicate search. So if I'm creating, especially, it works so well with frame parts and things like that. Like I don't want to have 10 parts out there that are exactly the same in my factory with different part numbers and different locations, and we're trying to source all those and then service. Let's say if they're the same part, they're the same part. Keep that same part number and then just keep reusing it. So the way that works is it's kind of built through Inventor. So if I generate, say, a square tube, 2 by 2, and it's 2 feet long. Well, if it's really similar to something else, you can do a quick search. It'll go fine. So Vault indexes all those, the shape. It doesn't even matter what features you use. It could be a shell versus an extrusion, whatever it is. If it finds that exact shape, it's going to let you know, and then you can replace that part on the fly right within Inventor. So they added that a few versions ago, and it's super cool. All right, so again, how are we doing on time here? Okay, I'm already in a half hour. Okay, I'm gonna try to speed things up just a little bit here. I don't want to take more time than what we initially said. So release and revision management, though, this is just in Vault Pro. And again, those life cycle states can help determine who sees it, who has access to modify it. and trigger, like I said, the life cycle state changes can trigger some of those things like PDFs. The job processor in the background kind of takes care of that. But obviously revisions are important too, right? If I release revision A, now I know production can see it. They're going to start building that. That's the current, most recent file. But down the road, 6 months later, we might need to make a change. Like somebody comes back, says, hey, you need to add a little hole in here so we can hook it and send it down the paint line or whatever it is. So you revise it at that point. Then you can track the history. Within Vault, there's an ECO process that you can say, here's why we changed it. We added a hole to throw a paint hook in there. Very simple, but maybe we still need to know why that hole's in there so somebody doesn't remove it and down the road again or make a change to it, not realizing that what the intended purpose for. So I'm a big fan of having that change documented. And in my background too, I did some quality stuff out in service. So knowing why, when something changed and then why it started to have an issue, you can kind of go back and hopefully resolve that mistake faster. So an ECO is an engineering change order. You might hear different terms like ECN, ECR, all that stuff, but it's a way to kind of document what we changed, what files were changed, and why we changed it. And then obviously have it be all electronic, no paper printed, no Excel sheets, and then just tracks that through to who needs to sign off on it and who needs to implement that change in production. So it kind of gets everybody connected and on board. So we can actually generate tables automatically, revision tables, within Inventor. So these can kind of just get driven as you make changes. You can have it update in your Inventor, above your title block to the side of it or whatever it might be. Obviously, the revision can also then populate if that's in your title block. So we just want these things to be automated instead of having to go in and manually update all this stuff. So have the date, who signed off on it, all those properties can come in. Now, this is an AutoCAD thing. I'm not a big AutoCAD. I mean, I don't know. It's been a great tool, and so many of our customers still utilize it for layouts and different things. And actually, when it comes to factory design utilities, AutoCAD, Inventor, and Navisworks they all work together really well in order to do your 2D, 3D, and then in Navisworks clash detections and walkthroughs. Again, that's a whole nother webinar for factory design, but I think we'll definitely you'll be seeing that from us down the road. So if that kind of perks some interest, definitely stay tuned. It's a great tool, but nonetheless, this is just kind of showing AutoCAD. If you're dealing with sheet sets in AutoCAD, like you're printing multiple sheets, every kind of in one package, that's a great way to manage it. So this is a Vault Pro only feature. It's not in Vault Basic, but it can help with managing those sheet sets and creating your visualizations. All right. This is kind of a neat tool here too. So this kind of helps. There's a data mapping tool that kind of you can actually link it to your lifecycle states and have each file, each part in an assembly kind of get colored for how far or what lifecycle state it's at. So in this case, maybe my red is still at work in progress, or maybe that greenish tan is more of something that's already released. Kind of gives you an idea visually of what I still need to firm up in the design and release it. So this is just a nice visual aid here from the design standpoint of where things are at. Okay, let's talk about reducing loss documentation. So another best practice here. So we actually are working with a customer right now on a Vault Pro implementation, and they have a ton of AutoCAD history, PDF history. So we're getting all that loaded in, help them with that. But there's some ways here that we can actually search based on things that are written on a PDF and also things that are written on a DWG file, like an older AutoCAD file, whether it's a title block or even just any text. If you want to search a dimension, or maybe it's whatever it is, if it's text or numbers on a drawing, you can search based off it. So getting that legacy stuff searchable can be pretty handy, and it kind of gives you a little bit more of a warm, cozy feeling that I'm bringing this data in, and it's not going to be impossible to track it. Even much easier to find something versus out in whatever Windows system you were using. Mentioned the job processor already. So there's a job queue. You can kind of manage that, see which things are still in the works. But this just all kind of happens behind the scenes and can really speed up, automate some of those workflows. All right, let's talk about some best practices related to quicker response times. So as far as the review cycles, they added actually a peer review, just this most recent version of Vault, which is kind of nice. That basically what that means is if I submit a change or I make a change to a file and move it to, say, for review, I can't actually move it out of for review. I have to have a peer of mine look at it first and they have to move it out. So it's just kind of a way to sort of do like a little, I call it maybe a mini ECO process where somebody else has to have eyes on it. We used to have kind of a rule back in my design team in the excavator days was like, I don't release this drawing until somebody else sees it. And those were paper copies back then. So now it's just digitized basically. So, but also then just the ability to use the ECO process, get people involved. You can have just even notification users. Notice on the right there, we can actually get suppliers involved or subcontractors. We'll talk about that in a second here about using Vault Gateway to be able to do that. That's kind of what this slide shows. So with there's a tool called a design connector. That doesn't sound right. It's like the design assistant, maybe it is. Anyway, so there's a connector that gets added, installed. And if you have access to Fusion Teams, which you have, if you have Vault and Inventor and the collection, most likely you've got access to Fusion Teams. So this is a way we've worked with other customers too, to take data from Vault and have other like suppliers, contractors access that data outside of your company. So it'll take that data and you can actually sync this. It's almost like replication in a way, like you can sync it throughout the day, have these files. If you can kind of say which folder needs to go out there, it'll send these files through Fusion Teams so that they can go access it, download the file, make a change, load it, and then Vault will pull it back in and sync it back into Vault. So, I mean, it just kind of opens the door for all these different workflows to kind of help with people outside of your company if you've got Vault on premise. All right, let's talk about the journey of the bill of materials. So obviously the bill of material again starts in its infancy, really in Inventor. We're designing, we're building, we're maybe got this idea, we're putting it together, and that might, it's almost like thinking about before the bill of materials is complete, it goes through one heck of a journey, right? From the C bomb, I guess we call it the CAD bomb, maybe to the E bomb, and maybe to the M bomb, maybe to the S bomb, all those different bombs, right? And you don't want to be, when you talk, it's funny, the industry we're in, we talk bombs all the time, but it probably, if somebody overheard us talking about all these bombs, they probably wonder if there's some kind of a, spy thing or whatever, like, obviously bomb on bus, whatever. It's not a great term when you hear it out loud, but bill of material obviously is a very important thing in the design world. So engineering, design intent, so that gets added into the CAD model, but then we need to be able to push it downstream, right? So go to the next slide here. So we check in all our, from Inventor, we check these files in, and then all the structure is there within Vault to be able to analyze it, be able to make sure this looks correct on the Vault side. But then from there, that's still kind of more your CAD bomb when we're looking at, that was the file side. But then within Vault, there's a whole nother section called the item master. Now, not every one of our customers takes advantage of this, and for good reason. It doesn't. The item master allows you to manipulate that bill of material right within Vault. So maybe I want to restructure things. Maybe I want to add things like grease, oil that I'm not putting into my CAD bomb. But we can finalize that bomb here, and then it's much easier to extract or export from Vault from the item master. Another thing I'll mention is AutoCAD Electrical. The bomb shows up really good here for like an electrical DWG. It'll kind of itemize all those components. If you're using AutoCAD Electrical, Vault Pro is a great tool to kind of if you've had any issues with trying to get that bill of material. All right, so from there, then we get the E-bomb, from Vault, and then where else does it have to go? Well, so obviously, like I mentioned, manufacturing bomb, service bomb. There's even beyond that, there's all the sales might need a bill of material. So there's different areas that this bomb has a life of its own as it goes through all these different systems, like a PDM, PLM, MES, so manufacturing execution systems, MRPs, ERPs. Costing, there's all these different areas where this information is valuable and not just valuable, but required, really. So how do we manage these changes with the bomb? Change management, quality management, supplier management, new product development. There's all these different areas that are associated or need to be able to access that information. And it's not easy. Most companies here, they probably have, maybe they've got a QMS for managing quality. Maybe they don't like it, or maybe they just use emails to kind of interact with suppliers. Well, the thing is, it's kind of hard to do that with all these segregated tools. So basically, so what do we do then? Well, how do we manage these bombs better? Well, Vault does a great job of managing the CAD bomb and the E bomb, but then when it extends out from there, we need to get other things involved. And this is something we're going to focus on in a future webinar. But I just want to kind of highlight, getting your bill of materials started in the Vault side is important. But then when it needs to go to these other systems, I call it super bill of materials. If you think about just flying, the journey that these bill of materials take, and maybe they're not all starting from inventor models. Maybe there's other models, and eventually we build this bill of material that needs to again get approved, or then maybe we need to segregate it out a little bit for manufacturing. How do they kit some things like that? So the bill of material really is kind of it's really the key thing for most companies that are building products, right? That bill of material is like the Bible in a way. So anyway, so as it changes throughout time, we need to be able to manage that, and integrating it between these different systems is important. But also then when it comes to other people that need to interact with it, there's a tool, I guess I'll kind of see, this is coming up in a little bit here, but Vault PLM is kind of like taking Vault and then just adding a whole nother bag of tricks, basically was what it is. So PLM is when we hear this, when you hear Vault PLM, really it combines Vault Pro with Fusion 360 Manage. Okay, so that's another PLM tool. We're going to have another webinar coming up on that. So basically what Vault Pro is good at is managing design data and managing engineering data, and extending a little bit beyond that with some notifications, the ECO process. But really when it comes to quality, supply chain, new product development, there aren't really any workflows built into Vault. So that's kind of where Vault kind of stops, and then Fusion 360 Manage starts. And they're integrated, so not out of the box, but we can help with that. We do integrations, so that's something we're going to talk about down the road. So I wanted to kind of give you a little teaser for some of those future webinars that we're going to be delivering. Definitely stay tuned on that. But really when it comes to connecting your entire company, that's where PLM comes in, whether it's, again, quality, supply chain, having a better new product development process, you can really get your products to market faster. These are just a couple little tidbits here of customers. How are we doing on time? We're getting right up against it. But so this particular company, Riley Architectural, said Autodesk Vault has a tool called Copy Design. For us, it was like finding the Holy Grail. So yeah, that's one where we've had people just with one user implement Vault just for the Copy Design tool. SMD, our old system was cumbersome. You couldn't tell who had what files at what time. Once we transitioned to Vault, it was easy to see what parts were where and if they were available to be used. Dynamic attractions, teamwork was hampered by miscommunication. Now designers and engineers easily work together more collaboratively. Both designers and engineers access data for projects using Autodesk Vault data management software for manufacturing that helps with revision control and engineering change order process. Last one here, Komatsu. Not only is it much easier for engineers to share designs, we have access to a host of inventor features we couldn't use with our old PDM system. Okay, so there's some limitations there with other PDMs. All right, in summary, so Vault keeps your data safe, secure, and accessible, provides faster access behind the scenes, freeing up design time, manages all of your design data and archives legacy data, streamlines the collaboration you've always wanted. So it's a great tool. Again, very mature. If you think Vault is the right tool for you, reach out to us. We want to help you through the journey. Obviously, I've probably done 100 implementations of Vault over the years. Been working with it, I think 18 years or something like that. But we definitely want to have a conversation with you, because Vault, there might be something that might work better. Autodesk has other tools, so we want to make sure we have those conversations before you just say, "Yep, Vault's for me." But let's talk about it. We'll kind of help guide you in the right direction. So thanks, everybody. I guess I can hand it back over to Andrew to kind of close it out.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it. Just looking at questions. One question came in. Is it possible to configure Vault to send email notifications upon lifecycle state changes?
I think somebody has been probably asking for that for a while, right? There are some third-party tools that can do that right now, but in the pipeline in Autodesk's basically future state of Vault, that's going to be included. So I think I wouldn't be surprised if we see that come out in Vault 2025. I can't guarantee that, but I know it's coming soon. It's something people have been asking for so long. So right now, basically the ECO process is the only thing that can trigger email notifications unless you add in a third-party tool, or like for instance, we have developers that work in the API, Autodesk API, Vault API, so we can actually build something like that too if you need it sooner than later. But it's one of those things, like, I guarantee you it's going to happen eventually. The development team at Vault has kind of alluded to that. Again, can't guarantee it, but I think could see that very soon. Good question.
Got it. Well, I think that's it. If you have any additional needs, questions, or just looking for additional best practice help, we can certainly try and do our best to help. And happy to reach out to you directly, or if you want to reach out to us, please do. Everyone that participated in this webinar will get a copy of this recorded webinar. So with that, you'll have our contact information, both Eric and myself, if you'd like to set up some time to go over your Vault system, if you have one, to maybe find ways to better utilize it, or if you're on the fence about Vault, maybe we can talk through and see if it's the right solution for you. Or beyond Vault, if you're looking to do more advanced data management and potentially looking at PLM type functionality, we can talk about that too. So really appreciate everyone being here, and thanks very much.
Catch you at the next one, everybody. Thanks.